So we've been hearing that electric vehicles or electric buses, electric cars are going to be the norm, and all of that is zero emissions. So the zero emissions is coming from the fact that the vehicles will not use gasoline in their combustion engines. So basically, there will be no combustion. There is no combustion. There is no carbon dioxide that is being produced. So no carbon dioxide being produced is essentially meaning that millions and millions of cars will not have uh, the capacity no longer. So there will be no production itself of carbon or carbon dioxide from these, so that essentially makes them zero carbon. So there is zero carbon emissions because of electric vehicles, or because it runs on electric engines, or engines that supply electricity, get electricity, and then that's how the car or the vehicle or whatever runs. So this is in some effect, yes, true, that if you completely eliminate the source of carbon dioxide in terms of usage of uh, fossil fuels, then you're definitely going to get to having zero carbon emissions during your car's movement or vehicle's movement. But that is a blanket statement saying that this is not causing any emission at all is not correct. So I will sort of explain that to you. So for us to find the battery is made up of elements like lead and many other rare metals. So the higher the increase or higher the supply or supply demand, higher the demand, the higher the supply. For us to have the supply, we need to also start mining. We also need to have a clear cut system in place where we are recycling all these materials that have lost its usage or is no longer in use. We need to have a clear recycling ecosystem in place. A sudden increase in the amount of batteries that is going to increase the load on the mining, is also increase the load on procuring these metals. So these metals do need to be mined from somewhere. They need to be transported, they need to be cleared, they need to be put into the state where they can be put back into the battery system. So there are other chemicals involved. The other chemicals are definitely going to increase possible pollution with regards to other non air pollution that's not coming through a combustion process. It is still going to increase it. So sudden increase is without setting a system in place where we are recycling, we are getting things back into the system, is not set up, is not really sustainable. So it's not that we are against whoever is saying that this is not zero emissions. We just want to give you this tidbit of information that we may escape from one devil, but then we are going towards another one. And mining does involve use of fossil fuels, and also our present day charging system that we have is not completely coming from a sustainable source. So we, even if we all of us switch to solar across the world, it is yeah, I think that could be an ideal solution, that we switch to solar. But there are many methods in which we can actually, even with the current scenario, enable better usage in terms of not completely 100% switching to electric. There could be some ways in which we could have a hybrid system wherein we have diesel, we have electric, and we have people not using these transport without any electric or fossil fuels. So you could cycle, you could walk. Every time, I think it's more of a mindset. So people are, if at all we are able to transition 200 people out from using their cars. So many of them get single cars, or get their individual bikes to the office. So that's for the same amount of distance, or similar amount of distance. It's so 10 people using 10 liters of petrol. For 1 liter of petrol, 10, so basically 10 liters of petrol, but the same thing could be completed by maybe 3 liters of petrol from a bigger vehicle, bigger bus. So if public transport, enhancing public transport, affordable public transport, dependable public transport, or dependable office buses can reduce automatically the amount of carbon emissions that we are now producing without actually switching 100% to electric. What I'm trying to say is that there needs to be a change in mindset. There needs to be adaptation or an adaptation of new technology. There needs to be a weaning of older technology. All of this needs to happen at the same time, and it's just that when you have an electric vehicle, doesn't mean that it is not causing carbon emissions at all, because the electricity that majority of the places in India currently, if at all I have to take that as a statistic, we are still using thermal energy. We're still consuming coal. We're burning coal to get carbon dioxide, and then the energy from the reaction is basically used to basically give us energy in terms of electricity, moving of turbine with water, and then basically getting that. So even if we switch to solar 100%, it's not the perfect. Even if we have hydro, there could be a major problem in terms of putting up dams, putting up structures in place that hold the water and then leave it. So we are also changing biodiversity problems. We are also having flash floods. We are also having natural water habitats destroyed, and many people's lives and ecosystem pushed off. And then they are moving out from villages to the city, increasing the problems of the city. So it is a multi-threaded, layered problem that could be basically also about a lot of us changing the way we think, the way our habits are being programmed, and reprogramming of our habits essentially will essentially be a good thing. So since our electricity that we're getting is done from coal, and the electricity that gets generated to the amount that comes to your house or the usage, so there are losses that are happening because of the transmission. And to get these one place to another, there's also been already a record or a systemic carbon emissions in place. So essentially your electric vehicles are not going to be 100% zero carbon emissions. It may reduce the emissions that happen on a consistent basis, that's happening through your normal combustion engines. It is a definite decrease in terms of what is happening from there. But then it is also adding, it is not zero carbon emissions. That's the only thing that I want to sort of reiterate in this video, and sort of give a slightly better awareness as to why it cannot be zero carbon emissions until certain things are set in place, until everybody goes solar. And even when everybody goes solar, because the solar has its own requirements in terms of the electronics that are being used, the metals that are being used, there needs to be a system that is set in place where recycling of this is regulated, is mandated, and we don't get into mining new and new areas to start scaling whatever we have as a solution. So that needs also to be kept in mind. Otherwise, we're just jumping from the pan to the fire and the one fire to another. So I hope this video has been informative. I hope this information is something that's useful, and also is something that's made you a little more clear as to what is carbon emissions, what is zero emissions, and why it may not be the case that your electric vehicles or electric cars are completely carbon neutral, are going to be zero emissions.